An extract from Ffinnant, Volume 3, Ravens and Dragons, written by me, Lazarus Carpenter.
And what did you hear? Fellows repeated his earlier question. I cannot say they will kill me if they find out, Thomas pleaded, but Fellows simply replied coldly, and I will kill you if you don't tell me what you heard. Thomas looked into Fellows' eyes and knew he meant every word. They spoke about two routes to Flint. One said you would take the inland route rather than the coastal one, and they would ambush you south of Flint. Oh, they did they? Fellows smiled when he thought he could get one over on the rebels. All he had to do was to take the coastal route. Good. Put him in the wagon. Fellows ordered the captain of the guard, informing him the party would be altering their route and taking the coastal paths instead. But that may be difficult for the wagon to pass over, sir, suggested the captain. We will do as I say. The rebels lay in wait for us inland. Yes, sir. The captain accepted the orders, but he was aware of this route and suspected Thomas may have been planted with the intention of misleading them. But when he suggested this to Fellows, he would not hear of such a thing and dismissed him to go and redirect the procession as ordered. As the riders assisted Thomas into the back of the wagon, he met eyes with Gwillem. They knew each other from Conway Castle, but something made Gwillem and the others fail to acknowledge him, as Thomas did them. He sat next to Gwillem with a blanket around his shoulders to keep him warm, unlike his fellow passengers who sat exposed to the elements. When the wagon was under way, an opportunity arose when nobody was watching or listening for the two men to whisper to each other. Gwillem was the first to speak. What are you doing here, Thomas? And how did you get beaten so badly? Did the English do this to you? No, my lord. It is a ruse to make them change their route so you can be rescued. Your brothers follow behind, but Glyndŵr waits ahead. He smiled warmly. Ah, Gwillem said, requiring no further explanation. As the wagon rattled on, the driver hurled abuse after abuse with backward glances at the prisoners. Nothing like a good hanging, he shouted. You get cut down before you die, see? A big bucket of cold water gets chucked over your head to bring you back, and then guess what? He paused for effect. A big sharp knife slides from your groin to your breastbone, so all your innards drop out, he laughed. Then they burn 'em in front of your eyes and chop you up. He's a bastard, Thomas whispered to Gwillem. He's not stopped abusing us since we left Conway. Gwillem replied. Fellows headed up the column again with little caution in his mind, thinking he had outwitted the rebels. In his thoughts, it was the most fortuitous thing to stumble upon the Englishman lying beaten in the mud. How nice it was to be one step ahead. Rounding the bluff, Fellows was greeted by a most unexpected sight. A row of 50 Welsh archers with longbows stood poised for attack. Fellows called the troop to a halt when more archers appeared on each side of them. Then he saw a rider approaching from the north at a gallop, skidding to a halt not 100 paces away. It was Emrys. Surrender and hand over your prisoners, or else die. The choice is all yours. Emrys raised his broadsword. When I lower this sword, you all will die. Unsure of what to do, Fellows looked rather scared. Turned to the captain for reassurance. It was, after all, a real fight, and he was most vulnerable with no experience of battle. This was not a game, and he could lose his life, and lose it soon. It's a trap, sir. The captain took account of the rebels to the fore and at each side of his men. There was no cover to speak of, and his entire troop was surrounded on 3 sides. They could not turn the wagon around on the narrow track with the sheer drop on one side. They could surrender, or, if foolish, fight. Looking at Fellows, he suggested surrender, but Fellows would hear nothing of it. The captain made further protestations, but Fellows raised his sword with some difficulty due to his lack of physical strength and hailed a charge. The captain could do naught but comply, as the troops behind him did likewise, following Fellows in a full frontal charge. Bowmen on either side of them let loose cedar bows, and arrows rained down on Fellows and his men. Many fell to the ground, dead or wounded, in the first hail of arrows, which was quickly followed by a second, when yet more fell. Fellows rode on, oblivious to the carnage behind him, when suddenly he was aware of a knight in armour, sporting the insignia of Glyndŵr. The knight sat tall on a charger, looking strong and well seasoned in battle, appearing intent on bringing down this arrogant Englishman who was riding towards him. Fellows recognized the knight and was instantly filled with fear that spread through every cell in his gangly frame. He had previously seen Glyndŵr at court, and this was Owain Glyndŵr in person. He was about to do battle with him. Adrenaline pumped through his veins, and he tried to raise his sword to attack or defend, whichever might come first, but he lacked the strength. It was too late for him, as their horses crashed. Glyndŵr's mount reared on impact, and its hooves knocked Fellows to the ground. He fell heavily, and as he struggled to get up, a sharp clout at the back of his head put him back down again. "My lord," Emrys bowed to Owain, whilst holding his horse's reins in one hand and the hammer that put Fellows on the ground in the other. "Thank you, Emrys." Owain dismounted. "Who is this fool?" He bent down, removing Fellows' visor, pulling his head back to get a good look at the face beneath. "I know this weasel," Owain remarked. "This is Fellows, the king's spy, and he still lives. Bind him, Emrys." In no time the English escort of 100 men were mostly dead or wounded. All those not dead, including Fellows, were chained and took the places of the Welsh in the wagon. The captain died needlessly when an arrow pierced his throat, and when he fell from his horse he was trampled under the mounts of those who followed behind. An atmosphere of great success and victory spread amongst the Welsh as the prisoners were freed. Gwilym bowed respectfully to Owain. "My lord, I owe you my life."